You probably would first have come across Casey Costello when she and Don Brash, between them, were the prominent spokespeople for Hobsons Pledge. I think it was originally Hobson's Choice. It became Hobsons Pledge, which was a group that questioned the prominence of the treaty and certainly the interpretation of the treaty, and have done for a number of years now, in our lives and in our political structures. But Casey Costello was much more than just a co-spokesperson for Hobson's Pledge. She was also, as I understand, a policewoman. I think that's her background. We'll find out in just a second. Had a bit to do with the Taxpayers Union, as I remember. I'm pretty sure that's where I've met her. And then ended up number 3 on the New Zealand First Party list. Should be looking at the polls at the moment thinking, I must find a flat in Wellington. And she joins us now. Casey, welcome to the show. Have I got that right? You're in the police, is that right?
Yep, yeah, I did 14 years, left as a detective sergeant. I was actually with the police association with Greg. When Greg became president, I was vice president with him for a couple of years as well, so yeah. Yeah,
we see. It's interesting, isn't it? But in our conversation just before 11, Greg O'Connor was saying that he didn't have any problem, and neither did really the Labour Party, working with Winston between 2017 and 2020. Rather puts the myth to the sort of scaremongering tactics they're running at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, the demonising of the coalitions. Yeah, it's a working relationship, and that's why we keep talking about the need for experience and knowledge and skill in a political environment. And I think New Zealand First has proven that, working with 4 different governments.
Let's just go back a bit. You are of Maori and European lineage, is that right?
Yeah, Ngāpuhi Ngāti Wai from up north. I'm actually my family comes from across the harbour from Winston. My mum's family went to school with Winston's family in Hukranui. And yeah, my dad's family is, came here in the 1860s originally, so Anglo and Irish ancestry from that side.
The Costellos, yeah, that's an Irish Catholic name, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Very.
Wow, Irish Catholic meets what? So your dad's European, your mum's Ngāpuhi Ngāti Wai, is that right?
Yeah. So mum was Anglican so she converted to marry dad, and there was had the 6 of us.
So where are you in the birth order?
I'm sort of right in the middle. So there's 3 close together above me, 2 close together below, and there's 4 years either side. So I'm sort of bang in the middle.
So you're a little mixed parentage girl growing up in Northland. Where do you go to high school?
Oh, no, so we didn't grow up. Mum and Dad moved down to, they started off in Matamata and then we moved to Auckland. So I grew up in Auckland. Catholic school education right through.
What's the Catholic school in Auckland? Girls' school?
So I went to St Mary's in Ponsonby and finished up at Marshland and Mount Albert when they went co-ed with St Benedict's.
Right. And did you go on to university or did you go straight into the police?
Yeah, no, I pretty much went straight into the police. I wanted to be a journalist like my dad, because Dad was a journalist his whole life.
Oh, I think I remember him. What was his first name?
John Costello. He was racing journalism, so he was he was the first journalist to be inducted to the Horse Racing Hall of Fame, so that was a great honour for him. He was very happy with that. But my English wasn't good enough, and I tried to do the AUT course and didn't get accepted, so my next call was to go to the police.
All right, and you went to Trentham, was it, or Pororua?
Pororua, yeah. So, trained in the mid-80s and then got stationed at Otahuhu when I first graduated. I had to look up where the police station was in the map, and then did most of my service in Papakura, County's Manukau area.
What was that like? Because I remember it was a bit of a Laramie land in the 80s, 90s, South Auckland. It would seem very much worse now.
Yeah, it was. It's tough. It's a tough area, but there's lots of areas that are suffering under that. predominantly, they're back in the sort of late 80s, 90s was predominantly the ethnic gangs, the Black Power, the Mongrel Mob. They were sort of much more dominant. It's a much different thing now in terms of that. But very similar to now, the high levels of domestic violence and but yeah, not the drug levels that they've got dealing with now, and not the types of drugs that they're dealing with now. When I left, it was meth was only just coming on the scene.
Yeah, it's changed lots of things as well. And it's also intergenerational there now, isn't it? So if you were dealing with families in the 80s and 90s, I presume their sons and grandsons and daughters and granddaughters are now part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, even I found that was what was the tragedy for me, was even in 14 years, I had reached the point that I was locking up the grandchildren of the offenders I was first locking up. So the cycle was really quick. Like the kids were, it's just a downward spiral. It was really tragic. And, that intergenerational stuff is a real problem.
Once for Warriors, obviously Alan Duff's book of the early 90s, then it turned into a movie. People used to say that, in fact, folk that I've talked to said, well, that was my life, and others have said to me it was a documentary, it wasn't a drama. But and I couldn't have imagined anything more depressing than the home life and that was portrayed in Once More Warriors. Are you saying it's got worse than that, Casey?
I think it's got worse in that the influence of drugs is, destroying lives physically, in terms of health and mental illness and stuff. That the prevalence of meth is just a disease. It's horrible. So we were dealing more with alcohol and cannabis abuse as opposed to the effects of meth. So the levels of violence have got a lot worse. The types of harm have got a lot worse. The amount of money involved is greater. So yeah, I think there's a greater tragedy. I actually never watched I've read a lot of Alan Duff's books. I admire him greatly, but I never actually watched Once Warriors on that basis. That I just didn't need to.
Too close to home. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And I've had a number of people make the same comment who went there. All right, now, you are number 3. Is this you've been hanging around the political periphery, though. You ended up with Hobsons Pledge. When did you join them?
So that was 2016 we started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so 7 years. So it was, I'd actually met Don when he was involved with the ACT Party, and that's where I first got to know Don. And then after that election in 2011, we sort of stayed in a periphery contact, and then we sort of formed a group, had a few discussions about what we were going to do, that we felt that the trajectory the country was going on was incredibly worrying, and someone needed to speak out. And that's how it started.
And you also, I think I met you in a capacity with the Taxpayers Union, where you were working for them for a wee while too, is that right?
Yeah, so I was on the board. I was acting chair for a little while, just while things got restructured, and I was on the board for a while. I sort of, just this idea of fighting for common sense and transparency and accountability, and it kind of, they all sort of formed in together. This, which is why I connected with Jordan Williams and the Taxpayers Union.
Okay, so the combination of those two makes you a natural candidate for the ACT Party, not New Zealand First. Why did you choose the latter?
Because the issue on our equality before the law and our defending our democracy was something that I had. We'd spoken to all the political parties through Hobsons Pledge on making a stronger position on them, and ACT didn't believe it was a vote-winning issue for the 2017 election and again in the 2020 election, whereas New Zealand First had always been consistent on that, and I had greater connections, I suppose, with with Winston and believed in what the party had advocated. And I think they speak more soundly and more calmly on the issues of race. And that's really where I thought I was a natural fit for.